In the beginning, the universe was created. This made a lot of people very angry and has been widely regarded as a bad move.
There's a story here yet to be told. It's not about the money. I mean, you just do the best work you can, and you'll figure out how to make a living by it. Somebody who aspired to follow my lifestyle, I would say, boy, you're in for a lot of work. I mean, it's satisfying, but you'll never work as hard as being self-employed as you would for somebody else, because you are the business. You're responsible for everything. When you're in the process, it always involves surprises you didn't expect, and that's the best part. They want some big project, and I do it, and it's really wonderful because it pushes me to do things I wouldn't normally do. So it's really a lot about the patron driving the creativity. I built these guitars for the Fender Custom Shop, and we did this one that was a Day of the Dead. The music's been a fun outlet over the years, playing in different rock and roll and dance bands around Phoenix and around Santa Fe and some in Prescott. I just love playing live with good bands, simple stuff, blues and mostly rock and roll. But there's nothing like hooking up with a great bass player and a drummer, because that's the core of the band. That's what makes it work. If you got a good rhythm section, you can pretty much just stand there and fill in. And that was the fun of playing at this open mic that I played for years in Cave Creek. The bass player and drummer were fabulous. And then we had a keyboard guy come in, and a guy on saxophone, and this lady in trumpet. Wow. And you could just go up there and tell them basically the song you're doing, and you could just kind of fit in, and they'd make you sound great. So it's all about playing with people that are better than you. Just have that tenacity. I get into a medium and I have the tenacity to master it, whether it's metalwork or jewelry or stacking rocks or whatever I'm doing. Some of my earliest influences growing up were Mad Magazine with Jack Davis and Mort Rucker. And these guys were not only satirizing current political stories, but they were doing it with this graphic style that I just related to quickly. Especially Jack Davis's figures with the elongated hands and fingers and feet with the big floppy toes. I mean, you see that totally in the skeleton work that I do. So, so Mad Magazine was a big influence. And then, of course, Spy vs. Spy, not only the wonderful graphics, but how every story in Spy vs. Spy, one of them would plan to completely outdo the other, but it would always backfire on him in the end. Love that. And then I got into model car making, and from that I found out about Ed Big Daddy Roth, who was making hot rods, and I'd do those Beatnik Bandit and all those cool little models, and I would totally trick them out with threads for wires on the engines and upholstered seats and buckskin and jacked up with mirrors on them, and I'd cut them so the steering would work and wheels, and I'd win the awards at the county fair and at the local store and Sears or whatever to have their model contest. And then Ed Big Daddy Roth, of course, did Ratfink. So I was doing the Ratfink graphics on the back of T-shirts in the 5th grade for people. At recess, I'd stretch their sweatshirts over the back of a chair and do Rat Fink, or I'd do the Roth-style monsters driving the hot rod in three-quarter view so the wheels look like ellipses and wide, and with the tongues and big eyes with veins and spit flying and flies and the 8-ball shifter and the lines going back and smoke. Big moon-equipped, giant overblown engines and dust, and In the 60s, the poster, I started seeing posters out of San Francisco, Bob Dylan and different bands at the Fillmore, Grateful Dead posters, and I got into looking who did those. It was Stanley Mouse and Kelly. Mouse and Kelly were doing a lot of those, and then of course Rick Griffin. And that lettering style, where the letters are so morphed into each other and melting into each other, they were hard to read, especially when they did it in the juxtaposing colors, red and blue, vying for dominance. And so I was influenced by those and started doing that type of graphics in art and realized I could do it. And that was one of the first things that told me, hey, I could do this, I could be an artist, because I can make my own versions of these posters. The early influences of Roth and Mouse and Kelly and Griffin have supplied a constant line of humor in my work. Oh, I love cutting through this paint. Graphic. The liner, you can do shading and basically cross-hatching. Shows a little more volume, to the sphere. And then let's do a little bit of texture on the ring. And we'll do I'm going to do texture on the lettering. I'm going to walk it up from the bottom. I'm going to take small steps. 1, 2, 3, and then as I go up, I take bigger steps. And as I go small, bigger, larger, and out. It just creates some more interesting texture on the letter. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4. And one to go on. And something on there. 1, 2, 3. Are you able to see what I'm doing? I mean, I don't know how close you can get. I'm sitting here looking through magnification. I don't know. But maybe you do. I don't know. Just keep going here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
You put your fingers in the way.
Yeah, that's the problem. Well, I don't want you to actually see what I'm doing. I don't want to give it all away. I'm like Eddie Van Halen, I gotta turn around and put my handkerchief over my fingers so you can't tell. 1, 2, 3. How fabulous it is to be working with found objects because of the patina, the rusty patina and the age, and it suggests time, it suggests things that have ever happened, has intimate detail. It might remind you of something that happened in your own past. It might bring up something in your life that's enriching. That's why we look at antiques. We look at encrusted things as we're walking. Of course, I did this area in here, but out here, the entire surface, I didn't touch it. I just washed it and sealed it. All this texture, all these lines, all these gestural repeat motifs,
right,
all these suggestions of shape with an edge and fading and tone, these are all things that you try to consciously create when you're an artist. Mostly it's just a lot of fun, That's why I do it. I'm just so intrigued by just making things that it's non-stop inspiration. I just can't wait to get up and go in the shop and make more stuff.
Well, that's the key element in the work I do, because I'm an artist, so the jewelry I make is considered art jewelry, rather than fine jewelry, which you would go in a store and you're buying an amount of gold and a gem. The design is secondary. and my list of design is primary. So in the art jewelry field, I'm with other artists. I get into shows where there's other art jewelers who we have a real distinctive voice. You can look at their work and go, oh yeah, I know that guy, I know that lady, because of their design. And then there's costume jewelry too, which is usually really good design with inexpensive manufacturing procedures. Yeah, so basically those three markets. But I'm in the art jewelry market. And I'll do both. I mean, I'll take an old license plate and make a bracelet and put gold and diamonds on it. You know, so it sets up that juxtaposition.
There I got a really interesting little flare in the cut because of the dents in the metal, because when I hammered this over, it's kind of wavy, as you can see, because when I sanded it, so I caught a little of that dent. Well, that just makes it more interesting for me, because now I'll use that as more of a leaf motif. I'll just use that area like that, and it'll create a whole different kind of design there that I would not necessarily have gone for. But that's fine. That's what I like about doing this kind of engraving, is there's surprises that are going to come up that you have to save yourself, you know. You just jump off. You just jump off the cliff and you go, oh, okay.
Go for it.
Go for it. See, like here, it kind of ended abruptly, so I'm going to I have some room here. I'm going to put another piece like that. And fill that in really nicely. Okay. Okay, well, as long as I'm here, let's just do that. Really busy. Woo. Really fill that in. Real wide sweep. And that's it in. Thicken up this and go out on a real tight one there. And this one.
Well, this all started with drawing, of course, you know. The drawing is the real estate under everything. And drawing as a young man led into printmaking, and printmaking led into working with copper plates, with etching with acid, and they had some what's called burins there for engraving tools. And I started engraving there and really got into printmaking. So that's when I took the class, and that got me going. And I loved working on that scale, because I'd done model cars before, and I just loved that world where I could sit at one bench and work with all these shiny things, you know. And so that, you know, morphed into working with other metals. So I was employing these other elements into my design repertoire. And then I took more engraving classes up at the University of Oregon at Eugene, learned lettering, and then I took those skills and started engraving in my drawing. And really, there's my career, taking those classical techniques of engraving lettering and doing my drawing. And then I started morphing both the sculpture and the jewelry together, where I'm putting, you know, engraved pieces on rusty surfaces that have that wonderful patina. So there's my whole romantic rust collection, and it just goes on and on. I'm always finding new pieces. I'm always finding new. You can't pass. I've never met a texture I couldn't use. You know, you just can't pass them up. And the first one was this license plate bracelet I made. I just found this license plate. I thought, oh, I'll make a bracelet out of with turquoise and gold, and I thought, well, I'll make people noticed it. So I got this whole line now of romantic rust bracelets. You know, it's a monster. Right. So, yeah, so I'm fully employed doing that, and I'm never at a loss for ideas. I mean, I have more ideas than I'll, you know, be around long enough to manifest them all. That's the joy of it, you know, chasing those new ideas. And every time, doing them a little different, you know, never satisfied, you know. It's just, next time I'm going to make something a little cooler, you know. Because everything to me is essentially abstract. I don't care even if it's a recognizable image. It's still a balance of shape and tone and line quality, and then it's a recognizable image. I think Picasso said, bad artists copy and good artists steal. So I can steal some of the line quality from the Art Nouveau period. That is just to embrace my own drawings, my own manifestation of what I think is a balanced composition. The so-called Art Nouveau line quality that I do is really where I first got it was in the lines in found bones, like you find bones out in the forest, or the lines in the clouds, that kind of thing, these accelerating curves. And then I saw it later in Georgia O'Keeffe's work with her bones and antlers and skulls and the flowers. And that was before I even discovered the Art Nouveau movement as a young man. So I had that affinity for that curve even then. That was more influential than anything, I think. Sculpture work I do with found objects is really a challenge because you're using pre-existing shapes. So if you have one shape, it's going to be influenced by the next shape that you put next to it. So if you're trying to manifest a composition, I'm not just going to go cut out another piece. I'm going to find the next object that works in the flow of the influence of pieces. It's really a junkyard, but I call it the library of visual solutions, where you can go out and shop and find the right shape for the next piece, because one always influences the other. So that's the challenge with doing the found object pieces. They also all have an inherent story in themselves, because people will look at the part and go, oh, I know that part. It reminds me of my dad's tractor or car or something. There's all that coming in, and I'm just really looking at it as the shape that I need to make Thunderbird or whatever I'm making. I have my jewelry locally here in Van Gogh's Ear Gallery down on Whiskey Row. They give me a lot of room to see the work, and it's great traffic here. I'm proud to be in here.
But I had to really buckle down and learn how to run my business just like any other production business. That's the analytical side of the brain. I live more on the creative side, but I've had to learn to balance them. It's funny how once you realize you take complete responsibility for your life, it's a lot easier. It took me many years to get to that point. So that's what it's all about. And, you know, and I'm in the art game for the process. I'm here to be mesmerized by being in the process of making something, because there's always a point where I'm going to reach that I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm making a decision that I hesitate, and that's the exciting part. You learn, or you try it and it's a mistake and you have to do it over.
Right.
That's the part of the process. That's what keeps you going and keeps you growing and keeps you excited about. Tomorrow, I'm going to do that a little different. Tomorrow I know that worked, so I'm going to do it again.
You can see it in that blow your mind toilet seat job that I did when I was 17, you know. Every good artist has a sketchy past.